Hello and welcome to episode 9. Count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the Spotlight Games podcast. I'm just one of your hosts, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host Cayman Darty. Cayman, how are you today?
You know, Patrick, I have the luxury of being able to say I've officially beat Guardians of the Galaxy, so I am feeling sparkly.
Would you say I am Cayman?
Yes, I would say. I don't think I could do the voice correctly, so I'm not even going to try to. That's yeah, we'll go with that one. But yeah, no, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a little bit like a superhero today.
Ooh. Take it to the bank, folks. Cayman's feeling good. He's feeling great. We have a show for you today that I think will be grand. In fact, I think it's going to be fantastic. But before we kind of go through the rundown of what we're going to be talking about, let's do some of that sweet, sweet housekeeping. Please follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter at SpotGamesPod, Instagram at Spotlight Games Podcast. You can email the show, mail at spotlightgames.net, or you can DM us on Twitter or Instagram. We actually have gotten several DMs since our last episode with answers of various questions that we talked about that we're going to get to later in the show. But we're also now on YouTube. So if you follow us on socials and each of our bios, there's a little link tree. You can click that to go to our YouTube channel. Once we have enough subscribers, we will have a sweet URL that's personalized, but right now it's just a bunch of letters and numbers, and I'm not going to say them all or put them on the screen because wouldn't be helpful. So click through there or just search Spotlight Games on YouTube. Cayman had an idea that I really like that we're going to play with, which is trying to put up a little, some shorter form content on YouTube and Instagram. So maybe news focused, maybe, we're going to play with it. We'd like to get your feedback on that as we release that endeavor to your ears and your eyes. So let us know where your thoughts are there. Cayman, am I missing anything before we jump into the show?
No, I'd just say that if you want to see these beautiful boys' faces, you can do so each and every week at YouTube. Search Spotlight Games Podcast on YouTube, and we will appear right before your eyes. You can see us grimace and growl, snarl at each other when we disagree with each other's takes when it comes to video games and life.
Those sweet, sweet graphics that I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's happening, and hopefully I'm going to get an award for it someday.
You're going to get an award for it someday. I just feel it in my bones.
I feel it somewhere. All right, well, let's start this episode as we start every episode by talking about what games we're playing. Cayman, you told us at the top of the show that you are officially a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy and you've saved.
I am indeed.
Tell me about your experience since last week beating Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I have officially joined the Gardeners of the Galaxy.
Nice.
In an official capacity. I have saved the universe from the Universal Church of Truth.
How does it feel?
How does it feel
to have saved the universe, Cayman?
You know, I feel like both of us have very strong opinions that are both positive about the game. I really do think that Guardians of the Galaxy is a fantastic game, potentially the most attractive game so far. Oh yeah, it's easily probably the most attractive game on modern consoles. It really feels like a leap, at least visually. You were correct. There was so much shimmying, so much crawling, and so much sliding that if I never do it again, I will be 100% okay with that.
Yep.
The game itself is fun. The story is what's going to keep you invested for 100%. The 15 to 20 hour long time it ran for me. The gameplay itself, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I feel like by the time the game ended, the combat felt good, but I was never too excited to get into a new encounter. The boss fights, I think, were easily the highlight of the combat itself, but I never felt like I was drawn into getting into another encounter. Good news is that they understand that the combat's probably the weakest part of the game, and so they don't force you into a lot of situations until it is literally the very end of the game. You do have a lot that you're going to do. However, the game is a lot of exploring, it's a lot of banter, a lot of choices that felt like they had genuine ramifications. And so I walked away with a very, very pleasant feeling that the game is very good. I feel like it's getting snubbed a lot. It's not being talked about enough. And I think people are missing out on a really good game. If you're someone who wants a story-driven, first-person, narrative-focused game that's going to run, it's, like I said, about 15 to 20 hours, depending on how much exploring you do. Like it's great. And if you're a Marvel fan, you're going to love it. These are, like Patrick said, I think on the last episode, these are not the same Guardians from the movies. They are more authentic to the comics. And so they do include a lot of comic based references and story beats. But it feels good because even if all is the movie Guardians, then that's fine. You're still going to understand the characters. You're still going to understand the motives, who they are, and everything. So you don't feel like you're just dumped into like an existing universe without any context. But if you're a comic book fan in particular, there are so many incredible Easter eggs in this game that just had me giggling. There were multiple times I belly laughed.
Yeah, me too.
And so I really enjoyed it. I think that more people should play it, and I really, really, really hope we get a sequel or some more games akin to what they did, because I think it was a step in the right direction.
I agree. Something that I forgot to mention last week, that I think this game really also needs to be praised for is its facial animations.
Oh yeah,
it's like Last of Us 2 level.
Mm-hmm. It might even be better.
Might even
be
honest.
better,
perhaps. Yeah. I was blown away by how good their facial capture and facial animations were. The characters really feel real, which I think is honestly, like, in my opinion, as graphics get better, it's almost harder to make them feel more real, because we're now actually grading them against real living beings, as opposed to we accepted that they looked blocky for so many years, but now it's like, no, you need to look real at this point.
And I think you're gonna battle that uncanny valley aspect as well, which I think is tough, but they've made it where they look hyper realistic. I think the one thing that you don't see as much in video games is eyes, right? Like the eyes, there's a life behind eyes, and if you see someone in person, obviously you can tell they're not a cadaver, because they're living and breathing. Or maybe you're not. Hey, no judgments there. Whatever you want to be in life, and if being a cadaver's that, then good on you. You accomplished your goal. But no, I think in video games, like, the eyes are something you can never capture right.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is one of the first times that I legitimately was like, these look like real eyes. Like, these have a life behind them. There's something happening there. And that genuinely blew me away, especially some of the more emotional scenes where a character would get choked up or would be crying, and then you would see like the blood vessels start to change, the eye color would start to get more pinkish, and I was like, this is fucking incredible. This is legitimately incredible. So I had some issues with bugs in my playthrough that maybe hampered my experience a little bit. The game did literally crash during the credits. So
what a shame.
I ran into a couple bugs, but I don't think it spoiled my experience, or at least made it where I felt like it detracted any from the overall time I spent with the game. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Patrick, I know you've kind of run the gamut on
I've been all over
things.
the place.
So tell me what you have been sinking your teeth into.
So since we last spoke, I've dipped in 5 games, but I skipped one for today. I'll probably circle back to it because I don't want to just talk for the next 45 minutes about what I've been playing. One game that I really did enjoy. It's a very short experience. I played it on Game Pass, but I think it was released everywhere. It's called Unpacking. Have you heard about this game, Cayman?
I have. I've actually been wanting to get around to it. So tell me
Yeah.
a little more.
So Unpacking, it's kind of like it's a puzzle game where
Mhm.
you play as a character who is unpacking various boxes in different points throughout their life. So like as an example, the first time that you're unpacking is like the year 97 and you're unpacking like a kid's room. And whenever you like complete the level, you'll go on to like the next time period. So maybe this next one's like 2001 and you're in an apartment or whatever. And it it tells a really interesting story by not telling you a single thing. You're just you're learning about who you are and what's happening in this character's life by way
Mhm.
of unpacking their shit during a move. And it's one of the most interesting ways I've ever been told a story. And it was really fascinating. Like I don't think it's like a game of the year contender by any means, but it was a really lovely experience. And it also had that Rose was watching me at one point play and she was like, "This is really satisfying to watch because it's like you're just unpacking these boxes and you're just finding the right place for things." And like it gives you the freedom to kind of be creative in certain ways with where you're placing things. There are certain things that have to go in very specific places. And so
Sure.
sometimes that kind of puzzle aspect will be like, I don't really know where they want me to put this. So it's kind of moving things around and figuring out where it goes. But I really enjoyed it. Like I said, 3 hours probably tops. And it's the gameplay is the same the entire time. It just you get more rooms, you get more floors, you get like the house gets bigger basically as you go
Mhm.
on. But if
Now,
it
is this
sounds
a
interesting to you, I definitely recommend it, especially if you have an Xbox and you have Game Pass, it's free.
okay? Now, curious for me, is this a game that you're going to be like? Are you going to be listening to Spotlight Games podcast while playing, or does it have a
Oh,
soundtrack
for sure. I
in
mean,
which it's worth listening to?
it's a great podcast game. I mean, the soundtrack is nice. It's very calming, it's very soothing. But I don't think it is paramount to the story to be listening
Mhm.
to the game for sure.
Okay.
Um, there are some trophies that I missed because I didn't realize some of the things you can actually interact with. Certain things like I don't know, play music out of the boombox or whatever. Like that's I just
Sure.
made that up. But like things like that I didn't realize you could do until I looked at the trophies afterward. But yeah, I enjoyed that. Um, I played a little bit, I would say maybe 3 hours tops of Grand Theft Auto, the trilogy, the extended edition, except specifically just San Andreas because it was on Game Pass. And I wanted to see whether or not it would be worth buying somewhere else.
Okay.
And let
So
yeah, please.
before you say anything else, they have removed the original games from every digital storefront, so you
I
can no longer purchase them. Correct?
Half correct. They've
Okay.
removed it from PC storefronts,
Mm.
specifically because apparently they left hot coffee in, which if you're unfamiliar with hot coffee, way back when San Andreas was very first announced, some sleuthy people who are familiar with how to like decode games found there was this thing called hot coffee in San Andreas, which was this thing that the developers made kind of in secret as a weird like
It's like a mini game.
it's like a mini game basically where you like actually have sex with someone. It's not like in the game if you've ever played San Andreas or if you've ever played Game of Thrones, you or Game of Thrones, Grand Theft Auto. Sorry, you can pick up hookers and like the car will shake, but like you don't actually see anything. In this specific mod from way back, you could actually have sex. And
Mhm.
it was this huge thing back when it
Oh,
happened.
yeah, I remember when it came out because they were pulling
Mhm.
copies off the store shelves and were like,
Right.
"No, you're gonna get an adults only rating."
Exactly.
Um,
And so apparently they left it in. I don't know if they left it in as a joke, if they left it in just because they didn't notice. I feel like with how big hot coffee was, it had to have been on purpose, and they hoped that they would have gotten away with it. Is my personal
have
opinion.
you ever sorry, I don't wanna to derail us, but have you ever seen any, like, video clips of hot coffee?
I have seen some. It's kind of hilarious how bad it all looks.
It's like if for the listeners at home, if you've never seen and you could probably find them somehow online. But essentially it's basically two Barbie doll or a Ken and Barbie doll crotch just smacking together.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
like you can press
it's
certain buttons to like switch the position stuff.
it's
It's fucked up.
it's
Uh,
hilariously bad.
Yeah. But so it was pulled from PC because it was still there. But separately from that, the game is just riddled head to toe in awful, awful bugs. My personal experience, I didn't come across that many, but I came across at least 4 or 5. But there are videos going around on Twitter. Like there's this one that I think is hilarious where in San Andreas specifically, if you get in a car and if you keep like zigzagging the car left and right, as you keep zigzagging, the car just continues to grow in size. So they basically get the car to be like half the screen. And it's like just a really weird bug. Like
did you get like any rain? I keep seeing like videos of rain and it
I did not
being
get any rain.
probably some of the worst weather rendering I've ever
Yeah,
seen in a video game.
it's so weird. It's like this. Like I said, I didn't get any rain, but the game somehow simultaneously is like really pretty and the ugliest game I've ever seen. Like the lighting that they've done in this remaster is like at times really pretty. Like lighting can go a long way in tricking you to think that a game has good graphics, but then you'll see someone walking by and they look like, and I swear I'm not joking. Do you remember the I forget exactly what it was. It was like Mary Magdalene, or no. I remember what it was. It was the Mona Lisa, and someone tried to like touch it up,
Oh, it
and
was
the face was just what was it?
yeah,
Not
it
the
looks
Mona
like a
Lisa,
no, it's like a portrait of Jesus from
something
like
like that. But
yeah.
they made it look. They thought they were doing a good job and like remastering it or retouching it up, and they made it look like a 4-year-old did it.
It's like the statue of is it? It's not Messi. I think it's Ronaldo.
Ronaldo, yes,
The
and the faces
footballer.
look like that.
Yeah, that's
Like
so.
it's so weird. But overall, I do not recommend this game. Granted,
Okay.
I've only played, like I said, 3 hours probably of San Andreas, and like in ways it is fun, but it still feels not in a good way like an open world game from like 2002 or whatever.
Mhm.
I feel like they
Yeah.
didn't actually put in the work to make it feel better.
Sure.
And I think it's just a huge missed opportunity. Like this trilogy could have been huge, and instead it's just like a joke now on the internet because of
Mhm.
how poorly it's all panned out. So
Well,
that's a shame.
good news is we can always fall back on being able to see Naruto shooting an assault rifle at Rick and Morty. If
That's
you play Fortnite, that's something
Yep.
you can now do.
Yep.
So if you don't want to see some grotesque humanoid creatures
Yeah.
driving around a fake Oakland, California, you
Yeah.
can do that instead. What else have you been playing, Pat?
So I've been playing 2 other things. One of them I'm going to save for a story later because it ties in perfectly with that. And the other one I'm only going to touch on for a little bit because I have a
Sure.
feeling I'm going to be talking about this for the next several episodes
Okay.
because I am knee deep, chest deep. I'm in over my head in Skyrim, the anniversary edition. I can like, yeah, big heart. It came and just put a big heart on the screen. I started it on like Saturday maybe, and I was playing the special edition, which was released like 4 years ago or whatever, on last gen consoles as like an upgrade. Because I was like, I want to see whether or not I actually like it gets its teeth in me before I spend $20 more on the anniversary edition. I wanted to do it on PlayStation so that I could get trophies, but
Mhm.
if I were to have bought it on PlayStation, it would have been like the full $60. So I'm
Sure.
doing it on Xbox because the special edition was on Game Pass and then $20 edition for anniversary edition. And I'm having a ball, man. I'm playing as a Khajiit, which is the
Okay.
cat race, which I've never done before, but I'm a big cat. And I am just I'm having a great time. And I've already like I went down this quest line and I've no like it's all brand new to me. This whatever I'm doing right now, which
Mhm.
because like as I mentioned last week or the week before, I played Skyrim when it first came out on PlayStation 3, and when it was released on PlayStation 3 originally, it was released kind of like
In a really
the
bad state,
trilogy
yeah.
in a really bad state, to the point where once you got to a certain point in the game, it was like a dice roll whether the game would even work for you anymore. And I unfortunately was
Mhm.
one of the people who it no longer worked for.
Sure.
So I never finished it. I couldn't remember if between then and now I picked it back up again to try. I couldn't remember, but I'm I think I'm in for the long haul, especially looking ahead at the next couple months. There isn't a ton coming out that I want to play. So the Spotlight Games podcast might just become a Patrick is playing Skyrim again,
Look,
and let's just talk
hey,
about Skyrim.
and I've said this time and time again, and I think I've said this on almost every episode so far. I'm just delighted that we've got our third iteration of the game.
I think it's like our 8th iteration, but yes.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Yeah, because technically they did. I want to say they did the Switch release of Skyrim
Yeah.
outside of the other. Yeah, because we got the PS4 and Xbox One version.
So original Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PSVR, regular VR. Those were separate releases.
Sure.
Amazon Alexa.
Fuck.
And then I guess so. Then maybe this makes the 7th. The anniversary edition perhaps makes the 7th, unless I'm missing one. It's 7 or 8 iterations of this fucking game, and I've bought 3 of them now because I bought it on VR, but it made my stomach sick. I couldn't play it. It was too much for my poor little stomach.
Well, I'm happy that you're into it. Yeah. As we've discussed before, my birthday was just recently. Actually, for my birthday, I received a PlayStation Store gift card, and so I might just go ahead and put my money towards getting it again for PlayStation 5. This will be my 4th playthrough.
I mean,
look,
so if we need to officially make December Skyrim month for the Spotlight Games podcast, it might get us more listeners. It might lose everyone that we already have. It'll be a dice roll.
You know what? I think that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Sure.
So
sure. Well, with that, like I said, I have a 4th one, but I will get to it here very shortly. So let's transition into our first topic of the show, which is yesterday. Xbox had its 20th anniversary stream. So 20 years ago yesterday, the very first Xbox was released. They had like a 25-30 minute stream on Twitch and YouTube, and we didn't know what to expect really. Whether they would be like a bunch of announcements or just kind of like a reliving Xbox. And it kind of was both of those, except more so the second one and less so the first. They announced a couple things, but mostly it was just kind of reliving the last 20 years of Xbox. So I took some notes. I'll just go through. It's just a few bullet points. They started it out with just like a hype video, which it was pretty hype, but it was just about their history. They showed that famous video of like The Rock with Bill Gates presenting the Xbox for the first time, and just like went through a bunch of that. Well, their first announcement actually was that they've added 70 of the original Xbox games to backwards compatibility. And this also Stealth announced this is the last batch of games that they will be making backwards compatible, which is a little bit of a disappointment. There are a few games that I wish they would have made compatible, but I understand with licensing, those things are always very tough. Looking through, I don't know that there are any on this list that I really would go out of my way to play, but I'm sure, 70 is a lot. So I'm sure people are excited. Speaking of The Rock, they did a really weird giveaway section. It was like a 5-minute section all about his new movie that just came out on Netflix, Red Notice. And they just did a bunch of giveaways, it felt like incredibly out of place for this stream. But
I just want to briefly touch on that. Is it me, or does that movie feel like a movie that doesn't exist? Like because I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, neither.
But every time I see the trailer for it, I'm like,
it simultaneously looks like a movie that doesn't exist and 15 other movies at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that's why it feels like a movie from an alternate dimension in which we, for some reason, haven't got enough Gal Gadot, The Rock, and Ryan Reynolds and other shit. We now have to see them all together in
one movie.
Can't wait for my review on that one.
Yeah, I can wait because I don't want my ears to bleed.
That'd be a tough pill to swallow.
Next thing, which I was excited about, but they showed like 8 seconds. They showed a teaser of the new Halo show coming to Paramount Plus next year. Really, all it was the actor putting on the helmet, and they showed his armor. So we really didn't actually see much at all. So I'm excited to see more of that. I expect it won't be good, but who knows? It's been in and out of development for like 12 years now. So and then after that, it was like a fun little. They had like an Australian chorus and orchestra performing the Halo theme. So we kind of realized like the rest of the content of this stream will be Halo. And then the next thing was actually pretty huge.
Yeah.
There were rumors over the weekend, and I remember I texted you and I was like, I just don't
Mhm.
believe that this is true. But the bastards did it. They released Halo Infinite multiplayer yesterday,
Mhm.
a month ahead of its actual release, which I think was really cool. Like, I'm not a huge Halo guy now, but I might become one because the multiplayer is also really fun.
Mhm.
So I played a little bit
So,
of it yesterday, but go ahead, Cayman.
yeah, one I'm very curious as your thoughts because I know you got into it before I have, but part of me, and there's a lot of criticism online where people are complaining about the way it's structured with the battle pass,
Yeah.
which a battle pass is for those uninitiated is going to be something similar to like the way they do Fortnite or the Respawn game, which I'm drawing a blank on at the
Uh,
moment.
Apex.
Apex Legends, yeah, where basically you have like a certain amount of time in which you have to try to rack up a certain amount of kills and do all this stuff to be able to unlock new skins or new weapons or weapon skins or all, so basically the goal is to try to play the game as much as humanly possible in a period of time that's available so that
Right.
you can unlock basically John Wick's character skin to show off to your friends while
Yeah.
dive bombing out of a bus.
Yeah. So that's how Fortnite does it. And I will say, from the little bit that I looked at the battle pass for this, because like
Hmm.
I had so much fun the 4 matches I played. I was like, I want to just see what's in with the battle pass. It's
Uh-huh.
$10 at like the base price, um, which basically unlocks. I think it's like it gives you like XP boosts from time to time, and you'll unlock some things that you can't unlock naturally. Like you can level up naturally without getting the battle pass, but it'll just take a lot longer.
Hmm.
Um, but the way that they do it, and it's similar to the way Fortnite does it. I played a little bit of Fortnite, not much, but you'll do these quests kind of like throughout the missions. But with Fortnite, it's such a bigger experience than Halo, bigger like physically, like the map is huge.
Hmm.
With Halo, they're a lot smaller, and so the ability that they have to play with different mission type or like quote unquote mission types is just there's not as much option because like in Fortnite you'll drop in and like you might go to like the farthest northwest part of the map and there'll be this like random house with this guy and you talk to him and he'll ask you to do like one of three things, and those three things might be like go get me like 20 logs or go kill three people or go find this item somewhere in the world, and if you do it you'll get like XP which will go toward leveling up. And so there's a lot of ability to make it very different and very varied, to
Hmm.
sound redundant. But with Halo, again, 4 matches in, I've not played a lot, but there isn't really much like variance there or variability. I can't, what's the word I'm looking for? Variety. There we go.
Hmm.
There's not much
Sure.
variety. It's just like get a certain number of assists or use this item or whatever. And just so it doesn't feel like in 4 matches, I barely got any experience points, but I won. I was on the winning team 3 of the 4 matches. So I felt like I should have gotten like some experience, but I got nothing. So that's like the only downside. But
Mhm.
I don't necessarily care too much about the skins. Like I'm just there to play the game.
Sure.
So for me, it's but I could see why that would be a downside. But man, it is so fun. It's really smooth. Um, they do this thing that I really like that I've not seen in a multiplayer game before, which again, this might be a normal thing in multiplayer games. I just don't play them. But I choose to mute everybody because I don't want to hear people calling me the F slur that are 6 years old, uh, because I'm just not interested in that, right?
I take umbrage with that. I prefer to get on there, and then when I get to shoot one of the little bastards, I'm like, oh, look at you!
Right.
You just got shot by a 31-year-old man. How does it
Sure.
feel to be young and lively?
Sure. I hear you. But what the game does is the computer, or even like other, because they're all actual players, but like the computer version of them will have banter throughout the match too. So like it's just it'll trigger automatically. So like like I was playing a game of capture the flag, and a guy on my team uh killed the guy who had our flag, And so, like, there's a guy over the intercom that says, like, the opposing team has dropped the flag. And then that guy said, like, I got the guy with the flag or whatever. But it wasn't the actual player. It was just like the voice actor of the player.
Okay.
So it feels as if I am having dialogue with these people, but I don't actually have to hear them screaming and hear their mom yelling at them in the background and being called names and hearing a bunch of racist shit, because online multiplayer games are really toxic. So I really actually really like that aspect, that it feels like I'm kind of in this group that's talking, but it's just the talking is just being triggered by what's happening in the game.
Do you think that they're going to implement into a battle pass where one of the unlocks, instead of it being a skin, it is actually a different voice that you can implement, and it is The Rock?
I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock at some point does some sort of cross promotion with Halo. It does let you choose between a few different voices. There's like a few male sounding voices, a few female sounding voices. But if I could pay $5 to have The Rock's voice as my character, I'd do it. There are certain people I'd pay a lot more than the $5 to have their voice.
Yeah, I would pay easily $15 if I could get both The Rock's voice and Vin Diesel's voice into one, and all they say back and forth is, "But you part of family."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, I'm not part of your family." He's like, "But it's your destiny." And
I know this is incredibly off topic, but can we just briefly discuss that post that Vin Diesel put on his Instagram, basically challenging The Rock to come be in his movie?
Because it's his destiny, Patrick. I don't think you understand. That this is Brazil.
It is that post. There's so much to unpack with that post. Specifically, something that I really love about Vin Diesel's online presence is he oftentimes uses low res images for some reason. Like, he's a rich dude who has a team of people behind him, and for some reason he still shares like 350 pixelated, like 350 times pixelated images that are just, they look like dog shit. If you don't know what we're talking about, go to Vin Diesel's Instagram and look at the post of him in a pixelated version of him looking like he's going to kiss The Rock.
He actually just takes screenshots from his cell phone, which is an iPhone 4S.
Yeah.
And he takes screenshots of him just rewatching the Fast and the Furious saga just with his phone on his like 80-inch TV, but he's only watching them on DVD because
on HD DVD at that.
There you go.
But man,
was Fast and Furious was released early enough that we still had VHSs, correct?
The first one absolutely would have been on VHS. Maybe the second one, as VHS was starting to become irrelevant, but absolutely the first one would have been on VHS.
Then 100% he's got a copy of it on VHS that he watches until it's like, it's so worn out that it's just like little burn holes at each scene.
He has his phone wired into the TV a la Doc from Back to the Future, which I watched for the first time last week. That's why I have this reference just in my back pocket. But like he does when Marty's back in the past, and he like somehow wires his JVC camera to a TV in like the 50s or whatever, as if that could happen. But he is wired into his TV like that, but it's his phone wired into the VHS. Anyway, I really just shoehorned that reference in there to tell the people that I saw that movie.
I think you should be disappointed in yourself.
I mean, look, it's the year 2021, and there's so much goddamn content out there that I think people can fucking get over that I hadn't seen Back to the Future until last week. So fucking get over it.
All right. Well,
so why don't we transition into our next story, Cayman, which you're going to tell me all about. But let me throw on our little bottom banner here, which reads, Daddy Phil says Shuhei can't have Elder Scrolls 6, guys. Take it away, Cayman.
That's all but confirmed. This comes from Sam White over at GQ. He had an interview with Phil Spencer from Xbox. Quote, it's been confirmed that next year's Starfield, arguably the best game of 2022, will be Xbox and PC only. Spencer says he sees the same for Elder Scrolls 6. In his eyes, Xbox is the whole experience. Xbox Live, Game Pass, cloud gaming, friends list, save states. Quote, it's not about punishing any other platform. I fundamentally believe all the platforms can continue to grow, he says. But in order to be on Xbox, I want us to be able to bring the full complete package of what we have. And that would be true when I think of Elder Scrolls 6. That would be true when I think of any of our other franchises. And I'm going to stop right there to say, Phil Spencer, if you're listening, and I know you are,
He has to be.
I'm ashamed of you. Let me tell you why, because I know everyone's very curious. This is just bad for gaming entirely. It's just bad for gaming. You're taking an established franchise that's been on multiple different consoles. Shit, we just got a re-release of Skyrim on PlayStation again. I'm sorry, but to take an established franchise, something like Elder Scrolls, and just buy it out, right? You're not investing in the property. You're just buying something out and saying, everyone else, you can't have this, because if you want to play it, you're going to have to buy our console, which arguably I'm not as big on Xbox, whether it be the controller or the user interface or the other lineup of games. For me to have to go out specifically just to buy this console to play one specific game, and don't get me wrong, I think Sony has the same issue. I think the difference with what Sony does and what Xbox is doing is that Sony has established these franchises previous, or has established a relationship with these developers over the period of years.
Sure.
In which, I get it, man. I would be upset too if I was an Xbox native and I can't play Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is a fantastic game. Same with God of War or Horizon. So I understand it. But basically what you're doing is you're removing an avenue for someone to play a series of games, because Elder Scrolls is a franchise. If they told me just, hey, Starfield's only going to be on Xbox, I'd be like, you know what? That's fine. Like, it's not an established franchise. There's no lore built into this. There's no legacy involved. You're just taking something away, and you're just saying, no, if you want it, you have to come over here. You have to play on our side. And it's a console war thing that I think we have grown way past. I think it's bullshit. I think it shouldn't be happening. And I think that this is also a fiscal issue that is going to bite Microsoft in the ass later, when they have to deal with the aspect of the fact they paid almost $8 billion for Bethesda. And you're going to limit who's going to be able to experience those games. We all know that from last year and even this year, that Xbox is still not selling nearly as well as Nintendo or as Sony is.
Sure.
How the fuck are they making any money, especially where everything goes to Game Pass day and day? Like, there's no way they can be making money off of any of this.
Well, I mean, I don't have like obvious or like clear numbers in front of me, but the number of subscribers,
they don't tell you any of the stuff anymore.
Well, they tell you the number of subscribers on Game Pass, and it is a metric fuck ton. Like, it's millions and millions of people that are subscribers to Game Pass. So I think,
I guess the question you have to ask is, how much are you putting in?
Sure.
Money wise, how much are you putting in? Because making a game, especially something the size of Elder Scrolls or even Starfield for that matter, that is not cheap. Like, I want to say it was what, 250 million, almost 300 million to make Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, sure, they've way made their money back, but that's because they're also selling it on every single platform they can get their hands on.
Sure. I mean, I think it's an ethical issue more so than like a fiscal issue in my mind, because I am walking proof that I bought an Xbox because the moves that they're making speak to me as someone who I want to play Elder Scrolls when it comes out. And I think, I mean, to go back to what I was playing earlier, Halo Infinite multiplayer, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, with the game I didn't mention, The Artful Escape, which I'll talk about next week probably, Skyrim Anniversary Edition, although I did pay $19 for it, but I got $40 of that game free because of Game Pass, and Unpacking. For those 5 games, I paid $19.97 to play, because I added the edition for Anniversary Edition of Skyrim. So I bought an Xbox to be able to do it. So like their tactic of spending $8 billion to buy someone like Bethesda is working on me. Now, how many of me's are there? I don't know. But
well, here's the problem though, is that we have to discount the console itself, because they're losing money. Everyone's losing money when they make
at the beginning.
Console.
Sure, eventually.
I mean, I still the way that we're having with the delays with the microchips and the salt, like all that stuff, they're not making money right now. Like, they're definitely not in the black. Like
Sure, right
it's
now,
just not
but
possible.
typically with consoles, like eventually there will become a point where they start becoming profitable. It just the tech that's in there at the beginning is too expensive. But so yeah, I mean, I hear you. I personally, I don't think it's as bad as you do, which is fair. Like I don't think your opinion's wrong. I just don't
No, I
agree
know,
with
and
you.
that's fair. Oh, and that's fine. I guess the other part that I have issue with or take umbrage with is that this is also incredibly anti-consumer. And I will say this about Sony the exact same way that
Sure.
I say this about Nintendo, because I think Nintendo does a lot of shitty stuff. Sony does too. Not everyone has the ability, monetarily speaking, to
For
go
sure.
out and buy a Switch, an Xbox, a PS5, whatever. Right? People just, not everyone's going to have that. I would say probably majority of households don't have that kind of money, right?
I agree. Sure.
And so to tell someone like you are going to be blocked off from playing a game that you've been waiting for because what, Skyrim's been out now 15 years, 16 years.
Skyrim itself is 10 years, but Elder Scrolls, I mean, it's been like 20 plus years.
Okay, so 10 years. So okay, so we'll just go with the 10 years and say like you've been waiting. And let's be honest, this game's not going to be coming out for another few more
Oh
years.
yeah, but by the time it comes out, it probably will have been 15 years since Skyrim.
Yeah, and like you got people who are waiting on this who can't financially afford to get an additional console just to play a game. It it just sucks. Like, I'm sorry, it just
Sure.
sucks. And
Here's the kicker though, or here's the I think something that might make it somewhat okay
mhm,
in like with your argument. When Skyrim comes out, or when Elder Scrolls 6, whatever it's going to be called, comes out, non-Xbox owners will be able to play that game in two ways. If you have a PC, you'll be able to play it.
mhm,
Or most, I mean, and like it's not every game right now because it's still it only launched earlier this year, but xCloud, where you can stream a game on your iPhone or on a computer or whatever, you can be a part of Game Pass and just use xCloud and not own an Xbox. I am sure in 5 years when that game comes out, that game will also be available on xCloud. So you'll be able to play it. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the best way to play it, but there will be an option for people who don't own an Xbox to play it, is my guess.
mhm.
They haven't said that it's going to be on xCloud, but most of their first party games are. So I would be willing to bet that that's going to be available on xCloud. And in 5 years, I'm sure xCloud's going to be way better than it is now. I even, like I said, I started Skyrim over the weekend and I was playing with xCloud on my phone while we were watching TV. And there were some lagging issues, but I played 2 hours of the game on my iPhone and felt totally fine other than the little bit of chugging that it did every now and then.
Sure.
So they're not completely cutting off an entire section of gamers. They're just not letting them have the best experience. But if they want the best experience, then they need to buy either a PC or an Xbox that plays it.
Mhm.
I mean, ultimately, at the heart of the issue, I do agree with you that console exclusives across the board aren't consumer friendly. Like having to, like if I want to play a Mario game, I have to buy a Switch.
Yeah.
That sucks. We're the only industry where that's the truth. Like if anything, other industries are way more accessible. You can read a book on 1,000 different devices or have the physical book. You can watch a movie on 1,000 different devices or put it in a DVD player or a Blu-ray player or whatever. Gaming is the only thing where you can't, like you have to, for certain things, you have to have a certain thing.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate, but that is how it is. And I don't see it ever going away because companies like Sony and companies like Microsoft can say, come to where like buy our thing because you can have games X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and D. And people, fools like me, do it and buy the things because I want to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be happy until I can play Elder Scrolls 9 on an airplane screen on the headrest of
Yep.
a thing. Until I can do that, then I'm just going to be a miserable curmudgeon who sits here and complains about it and says that it's unfair, it's cheating, I don't like it. I
I
think
guess,
I'm gonna go throw my PS5 out a window right now just to spite Shuhei because he for some reason couldn't figure out how to fix this. And Shuhei, I know you're listening too.
Shuhei is definitely listening. I wonder if, like, to kind of your point at the beginning when you were talking about how like this is an established franchise, because there have been other companies that have been purchased by one of the main, really two, and Nintendo doesn't buy many companies. And then, so I wonder if this is setting a precedent or if this has been done before, meaning has there been another, obviously no franchise is as big as Elder Scrolls, except maybe Mario and Zelda, and like Sonic.
I mean, for
But
me
hold
sitting
on,
here,
hold on.
yeah.
I wonder if this is the first time where someone has bought someone like this and then said, okay, no one else can have it. Or it has it just been happenstance that the future games are new franchises. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense, that point?
The only time I can think that there was a developer large enough that's had at least a foothold this significant like Bethesda does, because Bethesda, it's not just Bethesda. You're not just lobbing like chopping off the arm of like Elder Scrolls or Fallout, right? You're also chopping off Arcane. You're chopping off Avalanche.
Sure.
There's all of these developers that Bethesda has bought out over the years that are all part of that. Like, I would say 50%. No, I would say less than that. Like, good 30% of like the big AAA developers that you see games every single year are now part of this grouping. And so now it's like we don't even have to worry about coming up and like nurturing developers and growing developers and growing new franchises. We'll just buy everyone out. And if that's the way you want to play, then there's, I mean,
let me put it to you
nothing
this
you
way.
can do.
Tell me what you think about it when I put it this way.
Okay.
Pre Bethesda being acquired by, or ZeniMax being acquired by Xbox, which ZeniMax is all those people you just mentioned. They're the parent company of all those things you mentioned. When you looked at PlayStation and you looked at Xbox, and in this case, we're not going to talk about Nintendo because they're on their own little island. You looked at PlayStation, you looked at Xbox. PlayStation had Last of Us, Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, Resistance. It doesn't really count, but it came to mind. Killzone, Horizon, now the Souls franchise, like Demon Souls, Bloodborne. I can keep going. There are probably at least 5 to 10 more like big franchises that PlayStation has exclusively. Now we look at Xbox. Halo, Gears of War, Forza Horizon, which on PlayStation they have Gran Turismo. They're like sim racer.
Crackdown.
That
was awful.
There are probably a couple other kind of bigger ones that we're just forgetting, but
Gears of War.
Yeah, I did say Gears, but it's like for the sake of conversation, it's like 15-3.
Mm-hmm. So now, here's my point.
Hold on, let me finish. Okay. 15 roughly on the PlayStation side, 3 on Xbox. Now that they bought Bethesda, now it's like 15-12. So the exclusivity, it's a lot more even on both sides, even though there are now a lot more over there. So now, perhaps, this is just an argument, perhaps, because there is more competition between the two and because there are actual first-party games that matter on Xbox other than Halo and Gears, perhaps that will elevate them both to start making more quality shit, because competition it always breeds excellence. And for the longest time, Sony didn't have competition because Nintendo only had Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, and Halo, or Microsoft only had Halo, Gears, and whatever the fuck else. But now they have some of the most celebrated franchises ever, similar to PlayStation, Uncharted, Last of Us, Spider-Man, all these games, like they're huge franchises. Now it's a little more even. What would you say to that?
So, and this will be the last thing I say in this because I feel like we're beating a dead horse. I don't disagree. I do think that competition breeds innovation.
Yeah.
But here's the one thing, and I think it's something that you just sit and chew on for a while, is what the fuck were you doing the last 10 years?
Sure.
If you're just going to say, well, look, Sony's got all these games and we don't have anything. Why not? Were you not investing in developers? Were
Sure.
you not making the correct moves? Were you not doing everything? Because it's not like Sony just went out and bought like a ton of like super established developers. I mean, you got to think someone like Insomniac only made games for Sony until they made Sunset Overdrive, and that
True.
was the only time
And
they ever
then
made it.
and then they were acquired finally.
And then they were, which was something that was like we assumed that they would be acquired
Sure.
regardless. And then, you know, Naughty Dog was acquired early on
Yeah.
in their careers as developers. Sure, they made Crash Bandicoot and they had some games before that, but it wasn't like they weren't known for being the developer they are until they were acquired by Sony.
Right.
And so Sony nurtures, they invest in upcoming developers, and these developers like Guerrilla Games, who only made Killzone games, and they were mediocre, I would say. I don't think that they were sure as hell there were no Call of Duty or
Sure.
Battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
But Sony invests in them. And then they turn around and make Horizon one of the best games ever made. And I'm sorry, but it's like it worries me that if you couldn't take developers that you already had, or you couldn't make strategic investments in developers that you thought were going to do something,
Sure.
and now all of a sudden you think that you got the gusto and the moxie to take an $8 billion company and then just start farming shit.
Sure.
I'm worried that what we're going to see is actually a decline in quality.
Okay.
Because
it's a
we
valid
haven't
point.
seen it. We haven't seen anything positive coming out of these developers. Shit,
Yeah.
Bungie jumped ship. And they're one of the best first-person shooter developers of all time, if not the best first-person shooter developer.
Sure.
They jumped ship. They tossed it over to 343, and we could blame it on 343 for how lackluster the last installment of Halo was. But I don't think it worries me that we're just going to end up seeing Bethesda or ZeniMax
Sure.
and their subsidiaries just start dumping out trash or not even making games at all because Microsoft's just going to come in and start canceling things left and right. That's just my opinion.
Sure, that's fair. My last point, because we are going a little long on this one, but I think it's a great discussion, and I love what we're doing here. Xbox and Phil Spencer specifically have been nothing but open about how the beginning of last generation was a complete mess. The way, like when Don Matrick was in charge, and their whole E3 presentation was, we're making Xbox the place where you can do all of your entertainment stuff. And the gaming community was very loud and being like, hey, we don't like this direction you're going. Don Matrick was gone 3 months later. Phil Spencer came in. And since then, it has basically been fixing that huge mess of the beginning of last generation for them. I mean, when you look at console sales, these are rough numbers, but last generation PlayStation sold like 120 million, something like that. Xbox One, last time they reported, it was like 59 million, like huge divide. I think a lot of that is because of how horribly they started the console cycle out. But the evidence suggests to me that it has been nothing but an upward trajectory since Phil Spencer took over. And there have been some like within the Xbox One generation, because also the other thing to consider is it takes a really long time to develop games, like several years. I mean, by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, it would have been 15 years. Granted, they did a lot of other stuff in the meantime, but I think depending on how the next few years go, it could end up being a very bad thing. I still hold out optimism that it will all pan out, especially that article that you read those quotes from. I would suggest, if you're interested in this conversation at all, reading it. It's on GQ. It's a pretty long interview, and they interview a few other people other than Phil, but that was like the big nugget from it. But it's really interesting hearing Todd Howard specifically talk about what it's been like since Xbox took over. Todd Howard is the studio head of Bethesda, who does Elder Scrolls, Fallout, etc. And there's a quote there that I think speaks to what you're saying, that, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, because he's not in front of me, but he's like, so far since they've come in, it's been very hands off. It's been, we just got new insurance, and because now we're a Microsoft company, but it just started. who knows what it's going to look like in 5 years. And it was really interesting hearing him say that, because he basically was like, I believe that they're going to stay hands off, but who knows? I don't, like, we just started this. So, and I'll be interested to see if they continue down that path of being hands off and letting these developers still do what they want to do, but now they have Microsoft come up in their opening credits, or if kind of what you think might happen comes true and it starts just declining in quality because they don't care. They don't seem to have as much care for their first party studios as Sony does. But I don't know. It's an interesting debate, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Sure. I mean, we can all remain cautiously optimistic. I guess for me, it's very much going to have to be a scenario in which I see firsthand positive changes taking place before I believe anything else.
Sure. One last question for you before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
What is an example of like, is it just them releasing first party games that are really good? Is that kind of what those things would be for you, or what does that look like, do you think?
So I think first and foremost, it's taking away legacy properties.
Okay.
And bottlenecking them into one avenue. And I think that that's anti-consumer. That upsets me, but that upsets me more from a monetary viewpoint for a consumer. And I think the other one is that, let's be honest, Bethesda doesn't have a fantastic track record.
Yeah.
They just don't. And with the history of some of the things that Microsoft has done and how some of their games have gone in previous years, it worries me that there's going to be a complacency taking place where that quality is going to go like a DC.
Sorry, to clarify, what I meant was, what positive things would you need to see?
Positive things I would need to see. One, I would need to see that the game start getting very good reviews. That would just be the first. They need to be positively received so that we know that the quality's there.
Yeah.
And I guess for second, it's going to have to be that either they do like Sony's doing with Deathloop, where these games are going to be exclusive for in a period of time, and then they get dropped on different avenues. So, whether you see them on PlayStation or Nintendo or, however that shakes out, like that works for me. Or if we do see that there is a strategic investment into xCloud to a degree in which it's not if you want to play the game, you can play it here. It's just going to be kind of shitty.
Yeah.
But you can play it. Like, I don't want that. No, if I'm going to have an experience with something, I want the best experience possible, but I also don't want to have to drop $500 to get there and then have to do all the other XYZ. It just yeah. So I would need to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. Well, I'm interested to see a year from now how you're feeling about Xbox Studios and the choices that they have made with their companies. But why don't we move on to our third topic? And this one, I really don't know that this one's going to take too long, because a lot of the games that we're about to discuss, we've already talked a lot about. But today, Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards did officially announce all of the different awards that are nominated for the Game of the Year awards, or the Game Awards, that are happening in just under a month. If you go to their Twitter, Game Awards, or go look at their website, you can go through all of the different awards and the different games that are being nominated. The only thing that we're going to pull in here right now is the actual Game of the Year nominations, which is 6 of them. So let's go through those, and then let's talk about some snubs. So Cayman, why don't you take it away for me?
Yeah. So Game of the Year nominees are Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village. So these are our Game of the Year nominees. And though I do think that there are some stellar standouts on this list, I do think that there's definitely some games that I'm shocked didn't make it in. First and foremost for me, Forza Horizon 5. And it could potentially be, I just thinking about this, it could potentially be that it's just got too close to the cutoff time.
Could be.
but that game was getting tens across the board.
I
And
agree.
let's be honest, this year was a little bit light in gaming. And so I'm a little bit shocked that that it didn't make it. I mean, especially with the inclusion of Resident Evil Village,
Yeah.
which was reviewed and received very well, but didn't have as nearly as good
I
of
wouldn't say
reviews
very
as
well. Yeah. I would say it
yeah,
was received positively, but not like exceptionally positively. The two
sure.
that one surprises me objectively and one surprises me subjectively. Objectively, I think Resident Evil Village, it's very odd that it's on this list. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed it, but is it game of the year contender? Not in my opinion. The one that surprises me subjectively is Metroid Dread. But
Mm,
I know that there's a ton of hype around that game and a lot of people
sure.
really, really love it. I don't see personally like what makes it great. But that's just my own baggage. But yeah, I'm surprised that Forza Horizon's not on there. I'm really, really surprised actually that Returnal is not on this list
Yeah, that's a
with
very good call
how
too.
like that game objectively of the ones that were snubbed, I think other than Forza, but like Forza being a racing game or a driving game, I can see why that might be a little too niche for people
Mhm.
to because the way that the nominations happen, there's a set of X number of outlets, places like IGN, GameSpot, Kind of Funny, Fanbyte, those kinds of places that send in their nominees for each. I think they pick 3 nominees for each category, and they go through each category and see well which 5 or 6 got the most, and so that's how it's done. And then they go through and vote. The same outlets go through and vote when the nominees are finalized. So I could see why Forza wouldn't because it's super niche, even though the reviews are super high. But like something like Returnal or even Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm shocked that neither of those made it over Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, I mean, I would have easily would have put Tales of Arise on the list before Ratchet and Clank.
Sure, I mean that's another one too. Like I really liked that game, but like we said last week or the week before, like the further we get away from it, the less impressed I am by that game.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
that's and I like Ratchet and Clank was a ton of fun. I'm not trying to downplay how good of a game it was. It was great, but I do think like Guardians of the Galaxy and Tales of Arise, especially those two, they are I think subjectively they're better games.
Yeah.
Um, So, and also something else to point out, and this is just kind of a funny aside. Cyberpunk 2077 was nominated for Best RPG, which I have to say, in the shape it is right now, makes sense. Should it be included in this list because it launched in absolute like a dumpster on fire flying down the street, careening towards a
Well,
crosswalk full of preschoolers? I think maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit on giving it any accolades because of just how poor the developers, or not even the developers, just the higher ups at CD Projekt Red handled it. Like we don't, because they're the ones that are going to get the praise, not the people who are working
right.
crushing bugs day
But
in and day out.
all of that aside, this game was released in 2020, like or in September
It
2020.
December.
Like
It was released after the Game Awards.
no, but it came out September 17th, 2020. The Game
I
Awards
want
are
to
in
say
December.
it was if I'm not mistaken, it was delayed to December. If I'm not
Google,
mistaken,
you might not be mistaken. Google is telling me September 17th, but maybe that's the original release date and they're not saying the actual release date.
if I remember correctly, I was actually gifted the game as a pre-order for my birthday, and it just didn't come out.
Yeah, it's saying it's weird on the pop out of Google when you search it, it
Mhm.
says September 17th, but when you search when was it released, it does say December 10th. So I guess it does technically qualify, but it's like what a weird, it's just a really weird choice with
Mm.
how. But um, who do you think of this list? Who would be your guess to win?
Uh, my guess, just from what I've read, conversation wise on different outlets, I would probably say Deathloop.
Yeah,
Is probably the front runner right now. However, for me personally, I still think It Takes Two
yeah. I feel like
is the game of the year
I feel like
contender
It
for
Takes
me.
Two and Metroid Dread are the 2 wild cards for me. Like they
Mm,
either of them could definitely win it, But if I were to put money on it, I would guess either Deathloop or Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, I 100% don't foresee Ratchet and Clank or Resident Evil Village.
Same here. No way. Not a
All right.
chance.
So moving on.
I want to talk about our favorite game franchises. And I have a few put it out on Instagram yesterday. I just wanted to see what people thought. So we have a few submissions from our audience too, but I just want to have a little conversation about, not specific games, but franchises as a whole. Doesn't have to be a specific number. We can just kind of shoot the shit, keep this, a little off the cuff,
a little light and breezy,
squeezy. But what are a couple? Let's just go back and forth. What's a favorite game franchise of yours, Cayman?
So one of our write-ins from WTF Famicom on Instagram, he said Uncharted. That would probably be my number one. I'm a huge Uncharted fanboy. I absolutely love the series. Even going with the weird Vita games, Golden Abyss, and then they had the card game as well. I just love Uncharted. I think it tells a fantastic story. I think Naughty Dog has they made Indiana Jones into so much more of an accessible experience for everyone. And I think that it's just, I agree with him. I think that Uncharted is easily one of the best franchises ever made.
Yeah. Another one of our followers on Instagram, Jade Suits, said The Legend of Zelda. And I've not played all of them. In fact, I probably have only played around half of them because I've not played any of the handheld ones except like the 3D re-releases. And I think I might have played, there's one on Switch, the Link's Awakening like remake. I did that one, but I didn't play like any of the like Phantom Hourglass or like those ones from like the GBA days. But I just really love like the long open world adventures, even though they're not. I wish there was a little more story in them. I do really, really like that franchise a lot.
Yeah,
I can't wait for the sequel of.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. I think another one for me, and this is one that Joffrey pointed out to us as well, was Pokemon. I don't think that there's been a Pokemon game outside of like the Mystery Dungeon or the pinball games that I haven't played. Every mainline Pokemon game I've played, and I've enjoyed each and every one of them immensely. And I am beyond excited because I want to say it's coming up at the end of the week. We get Pokemon. We get a new Pokemon game. So as I could say, I'm beyond excited. Actually, I want to say it's Friday. So the day after this recording goes live, we'll have a new Pokemon game. Yeah. So incredibly excited about that. That's easily one of the best franchises and it's so accessible. And I think that's what makes it so great is it is so accessible.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I've not played many Pokemon games, but I'm definitely going to give this next one a shot. So this one is not one that I agree with, but his submission made me laugh. Nick says Kingdom Hearts. He says somehow all of it makes sense to me, and then in parentheses 500 hours of Wikipedia later. Kingdom Hearts fans are so diehard about Kingdom Hearts, and I respect it. I loved the first two when they originally came out. I remember I borrowed my friend, our friend Tyler from high school, his PS2, and he let me play those. And I was like, wow, I really love these. And then I just didn't care anymore. I tried 3 and I just couldn't get into it. But one day I'm going to give them all another shot.
I think a good franchise that it gets hurt in the long run by the last entry into it is definitely Mass Effect. The first two games are easily some of the greatest sci-fi opera or space operas ever made. 3 definitely had some falters. It had some issues. The ending wasn't great, and I think we can all agree on that. Yes, but the game was still great. And then Andromeda, that's kind of a 50-50 split on whether people actually enjoyed it. I personally loved it, but I played it like a year or two after it launched. So it was, I think I got it for like $5 on PSN. It was like, that's how bad it wasn't launched that it was that cheap to get.
Yeah.
But I think Mass Effect's another fantastic
For sure.
franchise.
Agreed.
Anyone else on yours, Pat?
Yeah, I have a couple. I feel like I've talked about Last of Us so many times, so
Yeah.
I'll just say it and leave it at that. Last of Us is definitely my favorite franchise. I also one that I don't know that I've talked much about on our show is Assassin's Creed. I really love that franchise, and I'm one of the few weird ones who I actually prefer the modern day story to the historic story. I'm always wanting more information about what's going on
I
with
would
the
love to.
assassins
I
and the
would love to
Templars
see
in modern day.
I would love to see a new Assassin's Creed that's like set in like 2075.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
It's like a space Assassin's Creed would be fucking dope.
That's a game franchise that kind of to your feelings about Xbox in our last topic. I'm very concerned about the future of Assassin's Creed with their announcement from a few months ago that like the next one is just going to be they're like completely moving to games as a service model basically, and that I really hope that that doesn't completely sour that game franchise for me because I really love them. Also, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch this episode. The Elder Scrolls games I really love. I didn't ever finish Skyrim, as I've said a few times, but I remember Oblivion I was obsessed with for months when it originally came out, and Morrowind I've played too, and I really enjoyed. But another one for me, which even though I was kind of talking shit last topic about it being on Game of the Year list, Resident Evil. I love Resident Evil games, and it's actually it's a franchise that I have only started really loving within the last few years. Like I always enjoyed the original ones, but it wasn't until Resident Evil 2 remake in 2019 that I was like, you know what? I really love these games, even though they're at times super campy and their stories make no sense.
Sure.
I just think they're really fun, and they aren't so scary to me that they're unplayable like some games where it's like I am too scared, I gotta bounce.
I agree.
Yeah. What about you? Any other shout outs you want to give?
Well, I do want to shout out one of our listeners who did write in, and they said Halo. I was a huge fan of Halo 1, 2, and 3. Fell off after that. I'm getting on the hype train a little bit for Halo Infinite. So I don't disagree. I think that Halo is a great franchise. There's been some hiccups with a couple, or at least maybe the latest release has not been fantastic, but I think it seems like, at least from what I can tell from gameplay videos and whatnot and hearing people talk about the multiplayer, it looks like they're course correcting.
Yeah.
Hopefully that is the case.
Hopefully.
I would love to see Halo become another juggernaut again. I think that would be great for Microsoft to have that. You know, even after I just like shit talked them for a while. I do want to see them succeed. And so I think that, you know, a good entry, at least in Halo, would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Who said that again? Was that Mike?
That's Mike. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Well, last one I want to give a shout out to takes us back all the way, not the very beginning of video games, but I love the Mario franchise. Stem to stern, kart, golf, tennis, just actual Mario games, Luigi's Mansion. I love it all.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion's so underrated.
It just feeds that nostalgia.
Yeah,
to me. Actually, I would say Luigi's Mansion on its own. Love that franchise.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm gonna leave it for me. Any last shout outs for you, Cayman?
I feel like we're missing out on some, and I will say to the audience that if there are franchises or if there's Game of the Year nominees that weren't listed or that we didn't bring up, to please feel free to write in. Tell us what we missed. If there's things that you think that we're not on, you hit us up on Instagram. Leave us a comment on the YouTube video down below. Like, subscribe, share, or else. That is a promise.
It's a threat.
That's a promise.
It's both at the same time, but more so a promise.
Are we allowed to legally say that's a threat?
You know what? Probably not. I legally rescind saying that was a threat. It was just a promise.
It was just a promise.
A
promise for what? No one knows.
Who knows?
We could just come over and give you some tickles.
Maybe. Oh, see that? I think lawyers do need to be involved if you're going to go tickle people.
That's fair.
But yeah, I guess there's only one way to find out, isn't there?
Exactly. Well,
Well,
no. I don't think that we should tell people not to do it to find out what we do.
You're correct.
They should just feel obligated because you love us so much that you
exactly right.
like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your parents. Don't tell your weird Uncle Mike, though. Never tell weird Uncle Mike.
Wait, is weird Uncle Mike the one that said Halo?
God, if you, Mike, if you are an uncle, I hope you're not weird.
Well, I think we should quit while we're ahead, Cayman.
Probably.
That's been our show. Cayman, I mean, he covered the basics. Wow, my hair just did a weird thing. It just fell everywhere.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Oh, stop it. You honor me. Cayman basically covered it all. I'll just say what they actually are: at Spot Games Pod on Twitter, at Spotlight Games Podcast on Instagram. Cayman is at Kid Cayman. I am at Patrick Schwag. Our email is mail@spotlightgames.net. That's really all we have for you today. So go forth, conquer. Conquer. How about that for a franchise? Even though there's only really one. Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
Bring it back.
Bring it back, baby. We love you. We thank you. You honor us, and we would like to honor you in return by giving you great content. So let us know what we can do better. Let us know what we're doing well, and we'll see you on the flip flop. Bye-bye.
Bye.